What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Thursday, Rented Lips, September 24th, 2020. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Sure happy it's Thursday. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. And the phones are working today. So after we're done doing the news, we're going to open the phone lines and you can call in with your questions, comments, opinions, and observations from both yesterday and today here. All righty. As was expected, things in Louisville got very ugly last night. There were fires being set. There was a clash between police and protesters. Dozens of people have been arrested. 2 officers were shot. And, the Black Lives Matter people are out there, screaming, burn it all down. Apparently there were riots also in places like Portland. Responding to the grand jury decision not to charge any of the police with the death of Breonna Taylor herself. One cop was charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment for firing his gun in a way where the bullets just went into the neighboring apartment, which was occupied at the time. Nobody got hit, nobody got hurt, but still it was a very dumb thing for him to do, and he wasn't checking his targets or where those rounds were going to go. And when you pull that trigger, you're responsible for where that bullet goes, even if it doesn't hit what you're aiming at here. All right, the Kentucky Attorney General is warning that mob justice is not justice. He says it's just simply revenge. And basically Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who's a very impressive gentleman, by the way, handled himself very, very well. He defended the grand jury's decision to clear 3 officers of charges in Breonna Taylor's killing by saying law is not meant to react to tragedy. So Daniel Cameron, who's a rising GOP star, should be mention, he's slamming celebrities, influencers, and activists for suggesting they understand the facts of the Breonna Taylor case and telling people how to feel. Okay. And Trump is describing Daniel Cameron as a star who handled the Breonna Taylor case very well when he was asked to comment on the case. Now, the Breonna Taylor investigation reveals sequence of events that led to her death. The cops did knock on the door. Her boyfriend did shoot first and shot the sergeant in the thigh. Originally, there were claims all over social media that it was friendly fire. And Breonna Taylor died in a hail of bullets next to him in the hallway and not in bed, as has been repeatedly claimed again on social media. Now, it's an unfortunate tragedy. The timing was definitely a factor because the police were after Breonna Taylor's former boyfriend, who was involved in drugs and had used her address for some of his mailing activities. And the warrant they had was for him, but they basically knocked on the door. And apparently Breonna Taylor and her new boyfriend, Walker, thought it was the old boyfriend coming back for some kind of mischief. And that's why Walker had his gun out, prepared to defend himself from what they initially assumed to be some kind of intruders. Certainly after the door was breached with the battering ram, they had reason to think something ugly was going on. At issue, the police are insisting, they said police. Walker is insisting they never heard that. Now, Walker himself was cleared of all charges. The jury apparently felt that he had a reasonable case, that he thought he was under threat at that time. Anyway, last night, the Louisville protests were mostly peaceful. Are you getting sick of hearing that one? Until shots rang out amidst a skirmish between protesters and the heavily armed police. Now, the video captured the Louisville Black Lives Matter cop shooter, and he was using other protesters as human shields. Now, the good news is the 2 police officers who were shot survived. They're listed in stable condition, and the suspect has now been arrested and identified. Anti-police rioters attacked police officers who were putting out fires in Louisville. So here you had the police were out there trying to stop some of these fires, and they got attacked for it. But these anti-police rioters, identified by journalists as being Black Lives Matter and Antifa extremists, attacked law enforcement officials in Louisville who were putting out fires the rioters had started. All righty. That video that was taken of the U-Haul truck handing out signs and shields and sticks and other weapons has gone viral. And you can hear the people in there screaming, "Shields, we've got shields." And so this video of riot supplies being unloaded from the U-Haul truck in Louisville has gone viral, and everybody has seen it. It's just all over the place here. And it sort of underscores the fact that somebody somewhere was planning for violence after the Breonna Taylor grand jury came back, and somebody somewhere is paying for all of this. Okay, another riot was declared in Portland as Black Lives Matter protesters hurl Molotov cocktails at police, and thousands take to the streets in demonstrations across the nation following the Breonna Taylor grand jury decision. And again, the issue is they're saying that one cop who was indicted for wanton endangerment was not enough, that they wanted the cops who actually shot Breonna to be charged. And as the Attorney General made very, very clear, these police had entered this home. They saw an individual with a gun in a shooting posture. He fired a shot at them, and they returned fire. And so it's been declared justified. And under Kentucky law, that's basically the end of it. Over in Seattle, there was another protester. And in one case, a video caught a rioter hitting a Seattle police officer in the back of the head with a metal baseball bat, which, potentially could be fatal, certainly going to affect his eyesight. And apparently explosives were being thrown at the police. Now, Trump says he's praying for the 2 Louisville cops shot during the clashes between the Black Lives Matter mob and the police after the Breonna Taylor decision. And again, they took a suspect into custody, and the National Guard enforced the curfew. It has come out that the National Guard was, alerted and put on standby an hour before the announcement was made. So they were expecting bad things to be happening because of this. So interim police chief Robert Schroeder said the shooting took place at Brook Street and Broadway about 8:30 p.m. last night. Both of the officers, who have not been identified, were rushed to University of Louisville Hospital. One of the officers is in stable condition. The other one had to undergo surgery, but is also in stable condition. So Police Chief Schroeder said, "I'm very concerned about the safety of our officers. Obviously, we've had 2 officers shot tonight. That is a very serious and dangerous condition. I think the safety of our officers and the community we serve are of the utmost importance." And of course, shooting anybody is a crime, and shooting a police officer is especially serious here. All right, turning to our domestic politics, the furor over the Supreme Court nomination is continuing apace. And Mitch McConnell has backed off his promise that he'll get a vote on the Supreme Court nominee before the election. Apparently, the Democrats are planning all kinds of stalling and delaying tactics, and Mitch isn't sure he can get it to the floor, but he's certainly going to try. But again, it doesn't really matter, because this Congress and this president are in office for roughly another 4 months. Okay, and the idea is, of course, if the election is held and Biden steals it, they're going to scream that Trump's nominee be withdrawn. Biden's already said that publicly. All right, thousands have gathered at the Supreme Court to pay their respects to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg as she lies in state. It brought together the 8 remaining justices for the first time since March. They've been holding their meetings and hearings virtually because of COVID-19. Apparently, when Donald Trump and Melania went by to pay their respects, they were greeted with a small group of protesters who shouted insults at them here. Now, Trump is out there saying it's very important to have that 9th judge. The Supreme Court needs a Ruth Bader Ginsburg replacement now, because it may have to decide the presidential election. And having a 4-4 situation is not a good situation. It definitely is not, because if you read that Constitution, if the election and the Electoral College are unable to come to a decision, the election gets thrown into the House of Representatives, which is currently under Democratic control. That would mean Biden gets the presidency. Now, the Democrats are going full-on Antichrist as they attack the potential justice for her religion. This has been said countless times, and it's still amazing that any Christian would even give the time of day to voting for a Democrat. Now, given many Democrats are themselves Christian believers, while this takes a bit of mental sophistry to justify, these Democrats have at least been able till now to defend their stance, saying that their party has many anti-Christians in it, but that's not to say the party itself is aligned against Christ. However, those days of equivocation are over, because potential nominee Barrett is a devout Catholic. Now, when she was going through her confirmation here, she stated, yes, I'm a devout Catholic, but I can keep my duties as a judge separate from my religious beliefs. Now, President Donald Trump promised yesterday to sign an executive order that would require health care providers to provide medical care to all babies born alive during an abortion, late term. And apparently he's making an election year push to appeal to voters who oppose abortion, of which I am one. Now, the White House did not release further details about the order, but Trump's announcement follows numerous attempts by GOP lawmakers in Washington and in state capitals around the country to pass legislation that threatens prison for doctors who don't try to save the life of infants born alive during late-term abortions. Now, organizations representing obstetricians and gynecologists say the law already provides protections to newborns, whether born during a failed abortion or under other circumstances. But when anomalies are so severe that a newborn would die soon after birth, a family may choose what's known as palliative care or comfort care. This might involve allowing the baby to die naturally without medical intervention. Alrighty, Congress has finally released their report on Hunter Biden's activities. This was the report that Joe Biden wanted sealed. And apparently there was a lot of skullduggery going on, and everybody is saying, Daddy had to know. There's no way that Hunter could be involved in all of this and Daddy not catching a whiff of it here. So this new report of what Biden was doing during the Obama administration, it sheds new light on what went on and how involved Joe Biden really was. Homeland Security Committee Chairman Ron Johnson and Finance Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley said their investigation has faced many obstacles from Democrats on their committees and that executive agencies failed to comply with document requests. The chairman added that there remains much work to be done in their probe, his work background playing a starring role in the Trump impeachment efforts earlier this year. He and his father have denied any wrongdoing related to this work. Now, up in New York, a judge has ordered Eric Trump to comply with a subpoena for a probe into the Trump Organization finances by October, despite his lawyer saying he is a vital and integral part of his father's re-election effort. So Eric Trump must testify in a New York investigation into the family's businesses before the November presidential election. Okay. Apparently, the Department of Justice is now admitting that all 4 of the Carter Page visa applications were corrupt upon origination. This is a really, really big deal. Getting into the election itself, an election watchdog has found 350,000 dead registrants on the voter rolls in 42 states. The Public Interest Legal Foundation, which is based right here in Indiana, conducted a nationwide study to identify the hundreds of thousands of deceased individuals on voter rolls. During its analysis, the group also found that nearly 40,000 likely duplicate registrants appear to have cast second votes in 2018 from the same address. Just 5 states, New York, Texas, Michigan, Florida, and California, accounted for 51% of the total number of deceased individuals on voter rolls, according to the group. Pill further found that nearly 15,000 registrants were credited with voting after death in the 2016 and 2018 elections. Now, we know elections are crooked. They have been for a very, very long time. Even before the Collier brothers wrote Vote Scam, ballot box stuffing, it goes back a long way. I have to point a finger here at Donald Trump, who had 4 years to clean up this mess and came into office promising that we were going to have an election integrity commission. And yes, it ran into a stone wall with the state election commissions and the Democrats, but Trump could have and should have pushed harder, because it may cost him his second term with the massive amount of fraud that's going on out there. All right, apparently, 2 trays of U.S. mail were found in a ditch near Greenville, Wisconsin, and it included absentee ballots. And if that wasn't enough, the FBI is investigating some discarded mails in Pennsylvania at the request of Luzerne County District Attorney Stephanie Salavantis. And the FBI Scranton resident office began an inquiry into reports of potential issues with mail-in ballots at the Luzerne County Board of Elections. They've recovered 9 ballots so far, military ballots, all of them voting for Donald Trump, and they had just been tossed. In fact, Donald Trump this morning mentioned it briefly during questions with reporters here. Turning to back again to the protests here, a Trump supporter's garage in Minnesota was set ablaze with what authorities are saying could be an act of arson. And apparently the garage burned down, so did the vehicles. Graffiti at the scene reads Biden 2020 BLM. Apparently Black Lives Matter protesters take over an elderly couple's table at a Florida restaurant, and they were filmed threatening this elderly couple in St. Petersburg, Florida. The incident happened amid the protest over Breonna Taylor charges. The video, which is circulating on social media, shows dozens of protesters carrying "No Justice, No Peace" signs and chanting "Stand up, fight back" outside the restaurant. At one point, an activist comes up and sits on an empty seat at a table occupied by the elderly couple. The woman says, "This is my table," while trying to remove the activist from the seat, but fails to do so. More activists then approached the table. One of them called the woman Karen and threatened to knock your old blank boyfriend, the blank, out. Minneapolis is going to give $2 million to help beleaguered property owners pay for exorbitant demolition and cleanup costs. And this is absolutely necessary because a lot of the people whose businesses were destroyed have discovered their insurance will pay for the cost of rebuilding their business, but not for the cost of demolition and cleanup, which they can't afford anyway. So Minneapolis is stepping in to help these people get their properties demolished and cleaned up so that the regular insurance can come in and help them rebuild here. Now, this is really getting a little bit out there. Students at Mount Holyoke College in South Hadley, Massachusetts, are furious after the school refused to stop an off-campus rally in support of President Donald Trump, police officers, and law enforcement officials. It was called a Back the Blue rally, and it was taking place off campus, and the liberal students are out there saying the college should stop it. Well, how? It's not on the college property here. Amazing. All righty, let's turn to COVID-19. The CDC director says more than 90% of Americans are still susceptible to coronavirus. Dr. Fauci is predicting 700 million doses of vaccine will be available by spring 2021. Now, the CDC has published new survival rates for COVID. Okay? This is if you are infected with COVID-19. If you're between the ages of 0 and 19, you have a 99.997% chance of survival. If you're between the ages of 20 and 49, you have a 99.98% chance of survival. If you're aged 50 to 69, you have a 99.5% chance of survival. And if you're 70 years and older, you have a 94.6% chance of survival. And you're not going to see those numbers on the corporate media, because people are going to look at those numbers and say, wait a minute, we're losing more people to flu. We're losing more people to drunk drivers. We're losing more people to suicide. You know, so why all the hype about face masks and social distance, all the rest of that? Now, yesterday we reported the FDA may change the rules for guidelines for vaccines. And Trump says that he may block the FDA if they try and do that. Trump said yesterday he may or may not approve any new, more stringent FDA standards for an emergency authorization of a COVID-19 vaccine, saying such a proposal would appear political. Trump has repeatedly said a vaccine for COVID-19 could be ready for distribution ahead of the November 3rd presidential election. Well, Donald, it would certainly sound good and make the voters happy, but you're not getting near me with that needle. Okay, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back with more news after Welcome back to our show here. And again, a friendly nudge that Republic Broadcasting Network is holding a perpetual fundraiser. As yesterday's adventures with the telephone system demonstrated, Republic Broadcasting is being held together with duct tape, and duct tape is getting more and more expensive every single day. So a big thank you to those of you who have donated, and for those of you who have not, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. All right, there has been a massive international study that looked at 70 studies of hydroxychloroquine, of which 42 were peer-reviewed. And the results showed that countries with early use of hydroxychloroquine, Costa Rica, Israel, India, Russia, Turkey, Algeria, Morocco, Indonesia, Ukraine, Greece, and Cuba, had significantly less deaths than those countries that restricted the widespread use of hydroxychloroquine, which is Mexico, the USA, Great Britain, Sweden, Ireland, France, Netherlands, and so forth. The study involved the populations of 2 billion people. The glaringly obvious question is how many lives could have been saved if our CDC and our so-called health experts and mass media had not lied about the dangers of this life-saving drug. All righty. Now, this COVID-19 whistleblower who published this COVID bioweapon report, the story is beginning to fall apart. Dr. Li Mengyan, the highly touted, highly promoted COVID-19 whistleblower who claims that the novel coronavirus is an ultra-deadly Chinese military bioweapon, which was designed to target Americans, published her much-hyped COVID-19 research paper alongside individuals who may not actually exist. Plus, her academic credentials appear to call into question her technical knowledge and the level of access that is necessary to advance an empirical claim on this level. It's like I said when this story first showed up. It reminds me of the so-called Kuwaiti nurse who turned out to be the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador, who put out that story about how the Iraqi soldiers were stealing incubators from the Kuwaiti hospitals and leaving the premature babies on the floor to die. Another put-up job here. Okay. Are positive COVID tests in children wrongly picking up common colds, which can provide some level of immunity? Now, the common cold is also a coronavirus. Coronavirus covers a wide number of illnesses, including COVID-19. But is our society turning the blessings of de facto childhood immunity to COVID-19, along with the very elements that can help make them immune to severe symptoms, into a curse? There's been a big issue about false positives in the existing coronavirus tests. Over in Great Britain, the National Health Service COVID app may wrongly tell up to 1/3 of its users to self-isolate after incorrectly reading the 2-meter social distance. And it emerges that more than 3 million Britons with iPhone 6 or older can't download it due to iOS issues. I was having a conversation just before we went on the air with David Crucial Nonsense about backward compatibility, and how companies don't like that because they want you to always be buying the newest, latest, and greatest. But this new NHS COVID app may wrongly tell up to 1/3 of its users to self-isolate. And the risk of false positives stems from the app's reliance on Bluetooth signals, which can be affected by nearby objects. This means the app could judge that its user has come within 2 meters of an infected person for more than 15 minutes when they were actually just close to a Bluetooth emitting object. This issue raises the risk of people deleting the app because they think it is not working properly, or simply deciding not to download it. Germany has decided to add 11 regions to their coronavirus watch list. Germany yesterday announced it would add 11 regions across Europe to its list of coronavirus risk zones, according to a statement from Germany's Robert Koch Institute, the agency in charge of Germany's COVID-19 response. The list includes several popular tourist destinations across Europe, according to Reuters. France is closing the bars and restaurants in Marseille. Oh, it's all starting all over again here. Okay, turning to the international news. There is this Ukrainian CIA plot to incite Belarus against Russia, and apparently it's unraveling. And President Alexei G. Lukashenko accused Russia of sending a group of mercenaries to disrupt his re-election. With mass protests consuming the country after the vote, he briskly changed his tune. Now, Boris Johnson wants to make British armed forces untouchable by offering them immunity for war crimes. This controversial bill is passing through the House of Commons, which will make it virtually impossible to prosecute soldiers, but at the same time will strip away their own legal rights and health benefits. We got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about the international news here. And the Pentagon informs Congress it's preparing to have 0 U.S. troops in Afghanistan by spring. Now, right now, the Pentagon is expected to reduce troop levels in Afghanistan down to 4,500 by the November elections. And with the still negotiating U.S. Taliban peace deal facilitating this, on Tuesday, a Pentagon official told Congress it can expect American presence there to be completely ended by May of 2021. Not exactly a victory, but I'm glad it's finally getting over after what, 19 years, 20 years almost? Alrighty, leaked documents show how British government contractors developed an advanced infrastructure of propaganda to stimulate support in the West for Syria's political and armed opposition. Virtually every aspect of the Syrian opposition was cultivated and marketed by Western government-backed public relations firms, from their political narratives to their branding, from what they said to where they said it. The leaked files reveal how Western intelligence cutouts played the media like a fiddle, carefully crafting English and Arabic language media coverage of the war on Syria to churn out a constant stream of pro-opposition propaganda. U.S. and European contractors trained and advised Syrian opposition leaders at all levels, from young media activists to the heads of the parallel government in exile. These firms also organized interviews for Syrian opposition leaders on corporate outlets such as BBC and Britain's Channel 4. Over at the United Nations, yesterday they announced they're cutting vital aid to 300 healthcare facilities across Yemen. And cuts have also been made to the UN's food distribution services. The cuts come as the U.S.-backed Saudi war on Yemen continues to rage. The war has shattered Yemen's medical infrastructure, caused the largest modern-day cholera outbreak, and has left the civilian population severely food insecure. Between April and August, the United Nations closed or reduced more than 1/3 of its humanitarian programs in Yemen. If the United Nations does not receive more funding in the coming weeks, additional cuts are expected. Turning now to Iran. Article coming out of Russia Today. Don't believe all the U.S. lies on Iran. America's sole aim is to get the country it lost back in 1979 back in its grip. Let's not pretend U.S. actions or words on Iran have any legitimacy. The real threat to the world comes from self-righteous warmongers in Washington. We've heard it all over the past week. Iran is a threat to the world, a sponsor of terrorism, is destabilizing the Middle East, and the international community must cooperate over this grave threat by implementing crushing United Nations sanctions on the country, including an arms embargo as part of a snapback option against it. Shamelessly, Mike Pompeo positions himself once again as a champion of freedom, claiming he's on a self-righteous mission to stop the tyranny of Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines now, 800-313-9443, 800-313-9443, and this time they're going to be working. All right, Iran is bucking U.S. sanctions to export Venezuelan crude. After defying U.S. sanctions by shipping a cargo of oil condensate to Venezuela just last week, Iran is using the same ship to help the Latin American country export its crude. The Iranian-flagged supertanker Honey, also known as Horse, is loading Venezuela's top exported grade More 16 at Venezuela's government-controlled port of Jose, according to a shipping report seen by Bloomberg. The shipments give some respite to the nation's hobbled oil industry, as most ship owners avoid doing business with the country for fear of sanctions. The vessel, which just discharged 2 million barrels of Iranian condensate, turned off its satellite signal to avoid detection after the U.S. was able to intercept 1.116 million barrels of gasoline going to Venezuela in August. Bloomberg reported the ship was discharging its contents in Venezuela last week through ship tracking signals still show the ship off the coast of Dubai. All right. Qatar eyes normalization with Israel in exchange for the lifting of the Gulf boycott against it. Now, Qatar is poised to seal a deal with Israel as early as next month, says a source involved in the talks. It will present a drastic change from the current position of Doha that right now negates the possibility of recognizing the Jewish state without reaching a solution on the Palestinian front. In a confidential talk with Sputnik, an anonymous source in the Gulf that's connected to the highest echelons of government in several countries said Doha is now mulling over the option of normalizing ties with Israel with the mediation of the United States. The revelation comes amid a barrage of criticism that has been directed at the United Arab Emirates for reaching an agreement with Israel. One of the loudest voices was that of Qatar. All right. Trump is once again putting new sanctions on Cuba, specifically on alcohol and tobacco, in a fight against communist oppression. Now, the trade restrictions against Cuba have been prolonged for another year, with Trump citing the national interest of the United States on Wednesday. Specifically, the ban on Cuban imports of tobacco and alcohol have been extended, and the tourism industry has been targeted. Trump said as part of a White House event today, as part of our continuing fight against communist oppression, I'm announcing the Treasury Department will prohibit U.S. travelers from staying at properties owned by the Cuban government. We're also further restricting the importation of alcohol and Cuban tobacco. That's a darn shame there. All right, we're going to take a phone call now. Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mark. Am I here?
Yes, you're on the air. You're on the air.
Okay, yeah. A couple of things I want to comment on. Reminds me what you were talking about Pompeo and what a clown this guy is. Yesterday, I'm not sure. I think I was listening to the last part of your show. I didn't catch the whole show, but I think it was Joe from Tennessee made a remark about, we may have weapons that the Russians and the Chinese don't even know that we have. To me, this is kind of like dangerous type of thinking because whatever we got, you can bet the Russians have too. Their defense is dedicated right to Russia. It's not a profit-making thing. They have some of the best weapons possible, and Putin knows that he has to have these kind of weapons because he knows he's surrounded. That with the way NATO is set up now, he can't allow Russia to fall behind. So you can bet that they have weapons, including direct energy, which we probably have too. There would be no winner in a war. And that brings up Pompeo again. We'd all lose. Pompeo is a dangerous Christian Zionist, right? He believes in the whole thing about the end time type rapture, and he thinks, I believe, that all the Jews have to return to Israel first, or some nonsense like that, and then it's pretty much time. I think it's Gog and Magog, something like that. Comes from the north, and that's supposed to mean Iran and Russia. Well, this type of thinking, like I said, Mike, it's going to get us all killed. We talk about the COVID. The COVID is, a bunch of nonsense. Okay, it's basically, it's pretty much of a bad cold. That's pretty much what it comes down to. But a thermonuclear war with Russia and probably China at the same time, now that probably would be an end to the planet. Okay. It's not, we're not talking about invisible viruses there, and that's one of the problems with Trump. He's got these clowns in his cabinet, within his government, whether it's the Christian Zionist Pompeo, the Jewish Zionist Kushner, and others. And these people are dangerous, Mike. The only thing that still will keep me probably voting for Trump is because Biden and Harris are no different.
Yeah.
They've got their own warmongers there. Some of them are even worse, for that matter. Okay, you got the neocons and the neoliberals. Both I really call Trotskyites because, like Trotsky, a lot of them are followers of Trotsky, and Trotsky wanted to use the Red Army to push revolution around the world, much as the Trotskyites of today want the United States military to push revolution around the world. And add that to Zionists and other, New World Order, globalist type entities, and boy, we're in trouble, Mike. That's I don't know how we're going to handle that. And to think that we got better weapons than blah blah blah, that's dangerous thinking and can only get the entire planet blown to bits. Okay. On top of that, the AI that they're using to handle these nuclear weapons. Just watch Terminator movies. I've seen them all. I'm watching the Sarah Connor Chronicles right now, which is related to the Terminator. Okay,
there's another series coming out called Next. It's got the same theme. That all the world's computers become artificially intelligent and decide that humans need to go.
What movie is that?
It's called Next. It's a series.
Next, is it on now?
It's sometime in the next few weeks. It debuts.
Oh, that's awesome.
I really
But I don't know whether these things are warnings to us that, hey, you guys better be careful what you're doing, or whether it's the Illuminati-like rituals, which says, here's what we're going to do to you, and you people are too stupid to stop it. You think we're just entertaining you, but it's not entertainment. We're telling you what we're going to do to you, and we think you're too dumb to stop it. I don't know which it is. Whatever it is, we better heed and do something about it and stop it before something like this really happens. Okay? And if artificial intelligence is capable of doing something like that, when you go back to some of these old movies and TV shows like Battlestar Galactica, with what were they called? The Cylons? There's robots that took over.
The Cylons.
Cylons. Took over the planet and all that. That's not out of the question. That could happen. And, these robots, they're dangerous. They are smart. They are capable of their own type of intelligence. And, but they don't have a soul. They don't have a soul. They're not biological. They're not made by God or even by nature or both. I believe God and nature is one, really. Nature's just God's, I believe it's just God's nature. I mean, God's agent is nature. Okay? Well, these robots aren't made by anything like that. They're made by us, and then they're going to start making themselves, which they might be capable of doing already.
It's already happening.
That's what's so dangerous about it. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, look at Boston Dynamics. Look at those.
Yes.
These are like Terminator robots right there. So that's all I got to say, Mike, is just that, we better be careful. Don't think we got weapons that they don't, or they got weapons that we don't. We all got very advanced weapons, and they're dangerous, and they could lead to the end of this planet's existence. All right, that's it, Mike. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks an awful lot for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, just a quick response to what Mark's saying is what I mean by bringing up the super weapons is as a deterrent. It's, I think that if we, it's like the nuclear bomb. If we would have tested the nuclear bomb, maybe we didn't have to drop it actually on the Japanese, or we could have dropped it somewhere where it didn't kill 200,000 Japanese. Just
that
the fact
was
that we
actually
had such
suggested. That was suggested by Oppenheimer, that they set one off on, a deserted Pacific island and invite the Japanese to watch. And
I think that actually would have been a humanitarian thing to do. And I think that by Trump setting this up, if by rattling the Chinese, who are, there's a lot of stuff going on now in the South China Sea. I don't think it was really directed at the Russians, but I might be wrong. But either way, I know technologically the Russians do have they're right on the edge, top line, but the Chinese aren't. The Chinese weapon systems are usually pretty crappy, and I just think that I don't see it as a like militaristic act. I look at it more like a preventative. It's like peace through strength kind of thing, like Reagan. And and real quick to Mark, and there's a few of other callers that you always talk about war, and I want to make sure there's no war. Well, look, we've been almost the end of the Trump's first term, and there's no war. And I just hear constant criticism. It'd be nice if somebody called up and said, Trump's doing a good job on this war issue, my so-called moral exhibitionist issue, because that's what I think some of these callers have become, moral exhibitionists. They talk about war. Well, you got a president that's prevented war, that should get the Nobel Peace Prize. It got the Syria thing totally toned down. I mean, an American president has to act ballsy once in a while to prevent war. I mean, so, I do agree he's a bit of a bull in the china shop, Trump, but it's been successful, and he should be given credit for it. We're not at war. We're getting out of Afghanistan. We're getting out of Iraq. There's no more big killing field in Syria. We're making peace with North Korea. So, why don't we give them a little bit of credit, just a little bit, especially you guys that said, the war is my biggest issue, no war. And then they want to move the goalposts and start, I'm not voting for him because of the wall, So I heard that war thing for 3 years, and now that Trump hasn't gotten us into a war, they all want to back off because they can't support him because they all suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. But anyway, on the Breonna Taylor thing, I mean, does the world have to stop every time some black dysfunctional person gets shot by the police? I mean, this Breonna Taylor, say what you want, she's dating one drug dealer after another,
Well, wait a minute. We don't know that. We don't know if Walker was involved in drug dealing. Only her former boyfriend was. I do know that she'd actually been fired from her job as an emergency room technician, before this whole incident went down. And, they're trying to use that to polish her image. But let's not make some guesses about, somebody who can't defend themselves.
No, I mean, but when the police knock on your door and you don't answer and they come through and you start shooting at them, the guy that was shooting at the police, obviously, and she's in the middle of it. So the police are going to fire back. So to make this, seem like, the police were just like hunting black people. First of all, it wasn't a no-knock warrant. They had a justification for it, but they didn't. They actually knocked. And then the firing started by her boyfriend. So let's just say she has bad choices in boyfriends. So in that regard, once again, it's dysfunctional. It shows dysfunction. And all these guys, they're burning cities down because of some idiot that can't learn how to, yes.
Okay. Don't hang up. Mark wants to come on the line with you and have a discussion, which we're going to do after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to the show here, and we're going to bring Joe in Tennessee and Mark in North Carolina onto the phone lines at the same time here. And gentlemen, remember the rules, mutual respect, no personal attacks. Everybody gets a chance to say what they want to say. So, Mark, are you there?
Yeah, sure am.
All right. Well, you wanted to respond to Joe, so what have you got? What's on your mind?
Yeah, well, I can start very easily about saying that Trump is a peacemaker of some kind. Now, again, I'm going to vote for Trump only because I got no choice. I wanted Tulsi Gabbard, but they decided to make her treat her like she was some kind of Russian bot, the Democrats. So, but so I got no other choice but Trump. So no Jesse Ventura running or anything else. But let's start with Syria. The bombing 1 year after the other of Syria because of the false flag, completely false flag about the chemical weapons. Then we can start going again into Syria. Why are our troops there stealing their oil? That's what they're doing. They're at Trump's behest. They're stealing Syrian oil and ready to attack Syria if Syria tries to get them out. He's really listening to his real boss, Benjamin Netanyahu. That's why we're there. Why did he kill the heroic Iranian general, the terrorist fighter? He wasn't a terrorist. He was a terrorist fighter, General Soleimani. Okay? This was, again, on Trump's orders, okay? I know he had military-industrial complex clowns behind him, pushing him, but the fact is he gave the orders to kill that heroic terrorist fighter, that man who, not only helped other in Middle East nations, but actually helped out Christians. Okay.
Okay, let's give Joe a turn here. Joe, how do you respond to that?
Well, I'd like to put it in perspective. I mean, yeah, he did kill Soleimani, who was in Iraq stirring up trouble. Let's just put this is my side of it. And then he did bomb Syria, but that was like, you know, he warned the Russians, he warned the Syria. That was more like a charade to like. And I agree, I was against it when it happened. But let's put that in his 4-year presidency and compare it to like, you know, like other presidents that bombed the crap, or like Obama with Libya and Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan. Trump's pulling. I mean, I got to put it in perspective as far as balance. And then also I got to look at like pulling troops out of Afghanistan. Yeah, there are still troops in Syria. Yeah, they're stealing oil, but they're not as many as Obama. They're not bombing the hell out of Syria like Obama. They're not hundreds of thousands of Syrian Christians being killed like Obama. Same way in Afghanistan. They're making peace in Afghanistan. So, yeah, you want to get hung up on Soleimani. On principle, you're right. And you want to get hung up on like some of these, you know, the bombing of Syria like 3 years ago. Technically, I agree with you, but in perspective, I think you're way off. That's what my thing is on that.
Can I answer that?
Okay, Mark.
Again, we have no business at all in Syria. We also have no business going and putting sanctions on all these countries, including Iran and Venezuela, okay, and practically starving people there, all right? That's not the United States I learned to love, okay?
All right, well, gentlemen, we're going to have to let you go because we got to take a break for station identification, and we have more calls waiting on the other side of the break. I'm sorry, welcome back to hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, and we're going to go back to the phones to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, Michael, good day. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're on the air.
Yeah, Mike. Hello. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, to your last 2 calls. Yeah, Joe is pretty right on as far as yeah, Trump's keeping us out of wars, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And we'll see how this goes. He kept us out of the war with North Korea. Everybody said in the first 6 months of his administration we're going to be in a nuclear war with Kim Jong-un, the Rocket Man, and all that. So far that's worked out pretty good. He's pretty ill, I guess. He is Kim Jong-il. But you know, Mike, before I go rambling on what I got to really talk about, I want to get back to yesterday's call with Dustin. Yesterday, Dustin called in after us, me and Miles, and he besmirched both of us, mainly Miles. He's besmirching us about Trump not giving no money. Why doesn't Trump give his money up to feed? Well, Trump doesn't even take a salary as president, Dustin. Okay? Trump is trying to do a lot to stop world hunger. I'm pretty sure of that. But, you know, I know something about Dustin, Mike. He never, ever says anything negative about Democrats, Biden or Kamala or Obama. It's always Trump, Trump, Trump. This guy's whole narrative, like Joe was saying, is about bashing Trump. Bash Trump. Okay? He's always the one to hammer on Trump, but he never wanted to hammer on the Democrats in his own state of New Jersey, where he has a liberal, licky-kissy-touchy governor. His Senator Mendez should be in prison. Okay? None of these imbeciles in that state of Jersey know how to run that state. So, you know, and here is this guy, Dustin's always calling in, bashing callers that don't agree with him about Trump. Mm-hmm. I think Trump's the best president that I remember in my lifetime, even better than Ronald Reagan. How do you like them apples, Dustin? Ronald Reagan allowed his state of California to get 8.5 million illegals flooded in there when he could have stopped it. A black federal judge, okay, allowed millions of votes not to even count on Proposition 184. Okay, Dustin? And as far as the masks go, Dustin, I'm starting to realize this whole corona thing is becoming nonsensical. Okay? Tuberculosis, people are flooding in by like crazy. Okay, Mike?
Yes.
Nobody stopped that. Nobody stopped that.
Okay, really
going on?
Oh, there you are. You went away for a minute.
Yeah, Mike. First off, China. Do you think the Chinese communist government give a darn if they lose 600 million people? If they lost 600 million people, their generals even said that back in 10 years ago. If we lost half our population, you'd probably be doing us a favor. Okay? So Dustin needs to understand that. This was a weapon that came out of China, this Wuhan weapon. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they don't care. They lost. You know, Mike, you still haven't found out how many Chinese who died in China from the Wuhan flu. Why don't they give the figures? I bet it's more like 10 million probably died over there, and they probably wish it was 50 million. So they don't give a darn. And all you Dustin calls in, a lot of these callers call in your show, Trump this, Trump that, every freaking day. You know what? Give the guy a little break, man. He's not like Bloomberg paying for all these felons in Florida to get out. 31,000 felons that he's springing for like $1,800 a pop so they can vote. That's extortion in itself. What do you call that, Mike? What Bloomberg, that Doomberg schmuck's doing?
Well, it's being called bribery.
It's bribery, exactly. He's bribing the crap out of these blacks to go vote against Trump in this election coming up. Dustin. And your state of Jersey's always been blue since I can remember. Except maybe when Reagan ran. I can't remember. I think Reagan won Jersey back in the day. I can't remember. I think Reagan had a little bit of sway with Jersey back in the day. I can't actually remember that. I had to look it up, but maybe Dustin knows. But look at these blue states, Mike. The looting, the rioting. It's constant. It's unrelenting. And then you got LeBron James, and you got this Bloomberg springing for all these felons to go vote. For what? Bribe the crap out of them. Just like that. Mike, did you see the U-Haul truck? Where they
Yes, I did.
Shields and all that out?
Yep.
Come on. What? They need. How come the FBI ain't on TV right now saying, we want to know who U-Haul rented this truck to? That person's going to get popped. And all the people, the financiers of this rioting, like Soros, like Newt Gingrich said, people need to be put in jail immediately, including Bloomberg, including that Tom Steyer, those crooked schmucks. They're all filthy putzes. That's what their word is, Mike. They're putzes. A bunch of putzes. You tell them that's what I'll tell them to their face. You're a putz and they're a putz. They're all putzes. Bunch of putzes, Mike. So you know what, Mike? And hearing this nonsense from a lot of your callers, oh, Trump, and you know what? Joe is right. Take that damn oil. We paid enough damn money for these countries being built with their roads and all that. The asphalt we're laying down for them and building them fences and building their borders and building them street lights and all their cities we got to rebuild. We should take their oil. Who are these people calling in your show? Who are they kidding? We paid enough. And as far as that, Mike, you see what this idiot Newsom's going to do now? In 15 years, you can have no gasoline cars.
We're going to talk about that later in the show.
Well, you know what, Mike? I tell you the solution to that. You know what the solution to that is? The turbine engine. You don't need this freaking electric car crap. You need turbine engines, Mike. The turbine is what the answer is to this. With natural gas.
Well, what are you going to power the turbine with if it's not gasoline or alcohol?
Well, that's what you use. You use gasoline. You use alcohol. You use natural gas.
Well, Newsom's executive order bans gasoline-powered vehicles. That would include turbine engines.
Well, you know what, Mike? They want to ban these cars, but he'll keep allowing millions and millions of illegals over there. The Green New Deal. Why they got all these millions of illegals over there in that state? What's going on here? Millions of illegals keep pouring in there from all over China, Mexico. What is going on? Nobody's stopping that crap in that state. All the whites are fleeing. If they can, they have a way to get out. The highways are jam-packed. My buddy told me they're jam-packed at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the freeways. You can't even move it. I'll crawl. And even during the coronavirus, a lot of those freeways are still packed up at 5, 6 o'clock in rush hour. Who's kidding who here? But Mike, getting back to, we'll see what happens with energy. I don't know. I don't believe that's going to fly. The Newsom won't be there. But, they'll probably end up going to the turbine engine or some other kind of source. I don't believe the answer is in electric cars. Mike, they have rolling blackouts in California right now. How you going to have electric cars when there's rolling blackouts in California, Mike?
That is a very, very good point you make.
So they're having rolling blackouts all over the freaking place, and you're going to have electric cars. Are you kidding me? Those imbeciles don't know how to run nothing. So you know what? And getting back to Dustin besmirching Miles and me about Trump. Now, Trump gave his whole salary up, okay, to different charities. He pays a lot. He pays for a lot of crap. He when he goes golfing, he's paying because he owns the golf courses, okay? Not like Secretary Obama was flying over to Hawaii, and his wife would take another jet, and then he put the other her staff on another jet. Who's kidding who here? I never heard Dustin say one real bad thing about Obama. Dustin is in the tank for the Democrats because he even said it months ago. Months ago, Dustin saying, well, in this state, you can only vote Democrat. No, you can vote independent. You can go start another party or something. Be a libertarian or something. I mean, to hear this guy talking about, oh, Trump. The guy never says one nice thing about Trump that he's done. I mean, good He's helped the black like they've never been helped. He's helped the Hispanics like they've never been financially helped. And we got these creeps like Bloomberg, LeBron James coming in here bailing all these criminals out, which bribing the crap out of them. The whole thing is a bribery.
Yes.
The whole thing's a bribe. So who's kidding who? And, as far as Mark goes, I want Mark to understand, listen, yeah, you're going to vote for Trump. That's wonderful. That's great, Mark. But you know what? Does Mark ever have any good things to say about Trump that he's done that he actually likes? I like to hear Mark give like 3 good things that he likes that Trump's done. I've done it. I think Trump's done great on immigration. I think Trump's done great on our economy. I think Trump's done great on energy. I think Trump's done great on a lot of things. Yeah, there's some things I'm not happy about with the sanctuary cities. I say he goes arrest them all because I believe, like you said, Mike. What is that? What's it called? I can't think right now. The Resurrection Act. What do you call it?
The Insurrection Act.
Yes, right. I believe that's what these governors are doing right now in California and all these states that are allowing these sanctuary cities. I think
they're in clear violation of Title VIII.
Yes, and they're allowing. Well, Mike, they have for months now. They have taken off the Molly Tibbetts case off the air. Not one network, not even Fox is talking about that. They haven't. They try to keep quiet on Kate Steinle. Only Fox is talking about that. When the illegal alien that murdered her had 5 deportations. He came back to the country 5 times, and they allowed him back to kill a beautiful woman like that. Who's been held accountable for that, Mike? The whole
nobody.
San Francisco should be put in jail, including that pig Pelosi. Pigs Pelosi and all those demon rats. They should be held accountable for every white or black American or Hispanic American, for that matter, that gets murdered by an illegal alien. When he's like Trump says, hey, by the way, Dustin, does one of your Democratic buddies ever talk about MS-13 and the gangs and all these Americans getting murdered by these gang members, Dustin? Does Joe bumbling buffoonery Biden ever said anything about that, Dustin? Or that Kamala Harris, that chameleon, that lizard, that freak? She don't know it. And then, by the way, Mike, I just see something they were talking about here in the paper here in South Florida. Kamala Harris's great-great-grandfather was a slave owner. You know that, Jamaica.
Yes.
They did. The great-grandfather owned slaves. Great-great-great-grandfather was a slave owner, Jamaica. And they're trying to keep that quiet, but that came out in the paper down here. So a lot of people are like, and by the way, Trump's doing pretty good in the Haitian community here from what I'm hearing. He's looking at like 45% of the Haitian vote. So I think that's a good thing. I don't know. Remember Hillary, she stole all the money from Haiti during the earthquake.
Yes.
Remember that?
I remember that.
They never forgot that. And they never forgot that. A lot of these Haitians here I know, they never forgot what Hillary did to Haiti as far as the earthquake and the money she was ripping off for her foundation. But, Mike, I just got to say, I hope Dustin does call in. I know he's going to refute me and Miles and all the other guys that call in to try to, show a little light that Trump's not as bad as some of these guys try to make all these Trump dad, yeah, Trump. What is this? What do these people want? What did Bush do? What did Obama do? Matter of fact, Mike, what did Ronald Reagan do when it came to immigration? What did he do? He blew it. He had a chance to stop it. He didn't. And then what happened? Proposition 184 came out of California. Millions of people went out and voted that day. The next day, a week later, the black judge rules it unconstitutional.
Yep.
The waste of money that was. For one black federal judge who couldn't use his brain to realize, hey, man, people voted for this. They don't want all their money going for all these illegals with hospitalization and all this other crap to schools. Like I told you yesterday, Mike, it's cost $120,000 to teach these one kid to learn to speak English over a course of 12 years in school. That's a $120,000 whopper right there. Did you use $120,000, Mike, when you're
Oh, yeah.
graduate from
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So could RBN.
What American? Yes, what American couldn't use $100,000 to start out their college career? And every white American gets a college degree, or every Afro-American gets a college degree. Even the Hispanics are born here and are American citizens. Who's kidding who here? And Mike, by the way, here in Cuba, now Cuba is going nuts because the United States now has basically stopped from rum and cigars and cigarettes from coming in here now. So there's no more trade going on. So now everything's going to go through Canada again. You see that?
Yep.
You heard about that. So now
I heard about it.
And Mike, and they barely have any food to eat over there as it is. If it wasn't for Canada sending food to Cuba, I believe those people most of them they would see so malnutrition. They would weigh maybe 80 pounds Not the heaviest. I'm telling you how bad it is.
Well, I think if Canada wasn't engaging in trade with Cuba, that Cuba would be very firmly in the Russian sphere of influence, and I don't think we want that to happen again.
Well, I agree with you on that, Mike. No, you're 100% right. No, I totally agree. You're right. No, you can't argue that point. You're right. If Canada wasn't helping Cuba, yeah, they would be back in the Russian sphere. No question about that. But, you know, what's going on, Mike, with these, like what's going on in Louisville and all that?
Yeah.
This is going to continue on whether it's Trump in there or Biden. So I think with Trump, you're going to have more law and order. If Biden gets in there, it's going to be total all-out anarchy. All out.
I think it's going to be the reverse because, you know, all of these Antifa Black Lives Matter, they're trying to do what they think is going to support the Democrats. And I think if Biden wins, it's going to turn off like somebody threw a switch. I think if Trump wins, it's going to set off more riots across the country. It won't be Trump's fault, of course. The big question is, what is he going to do about it? Anyway, listen, Tom, I've given you quite a bit of time, and we've got other callers waiting on the line. So thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. And I know Donald Trump is trying to feed the hungry. I understand you can get a free cup of coffee and a donut at any one of his casinos as long as you've got a big pile of chips in front of you. Anyway, let's go to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Hey, I've enjoyed what I've already dubbed the Dustin dust up.
Okay.
Dust up. You know, hey, I hope you check those two guys that had the debate. I hope you check that had them take off their gloves and check them for brass knuckles. You know, because you were like the referee there. You know. But,
well, I'm trying to keep the brass knuckle aspect of it down a little bit.
Yeah. So, Michael, with all due respect to Tom and Miles, who I very much enjoy, I enjoy Tom's passion, and I enjoy Miles' mildness. And I'm a sucker for words, you know, so I enjoy Miles' mildness, and I enjoy Tom's passion. But, you know, I have to say, you know, generally speaking, I have to come down with Dustin. I generally agree with Dustin's perspective, and you know, so the main reason I called, and then I just make a closing remark after this. But you know, President Donald Trump has described himself as a stable genius. Well, I have a word for the stable. I have a word for the stable genius. With all due respect to the presidency, but to the stable genius, I want to tell him that if he thinks he's going to warp speed vac assassinate me. If he thinks he's going to impose a warp speed vaccination on me, he has a warped mind. Because my mind is not warped. My mind is not warped, Michael. And if he thinks he's going to impose, Michael, that is so offensive. You know, you were originally from New England. I'm sure there's sayings all over the country, but there's the old New England saying, haste makes waste.
Yes.
Just because he has these overweening, megalomaniacal political ambitions and everything to rush that vaccination. These vaccinations are so dangerous, and it's just totally offensive for him to say he's going to. Basically, you know, I've used the word about people being Palestine. Well, now he wants to warp speed us. Well. Hey, Mr. Stable Genius, you're not going to warp speed me because you may have a warp mind, but I don't have a warp mind. And I reject it. And if you do come up with it damn well better not be mandated. It damn well better not be mandatory because I'm not going to take it. And you go to hell with your warp. You go to hell with a warp speed, as far as I'm concerned. If you think you're going to warp speed us, you're not going to warp speed me. You know. So anyway, Michael, and I'll close with these remarks with this remark. We're given this Hobson's choice, you know, between Biden and Trump and everything. But so naturally, everybody in our community, naturally, we feel like we have to vote for Trump, even if we don't care for him, because the alternative is unthinkable. But you know what I wish Americans would understand is we don't have to take the lesser of the two evils. Even if Biden and Kamala become president, if they try to impose a socialistic global government on us, well, we still have an option. That the Constitution guarantees us, Michael, a constitutional republic. a constitutional Republican form of government. And that's when we take up our arms, Michael. And hopefully, if Biden and Kamala win and everything, we take up our arms, and it doesn't even mean at that point we have to use our arms, but just the threat of taking our arms up. And I'll tell you, when we take up our arms, one Biden and Kamala, when we take up our arms, Trump may not have swamped the drain, but us patriots are going to drain. Wait a minute, don't interrupt me. Yes, stay away from me. The devil always has his little calling card here. I'm outside and some idiot's coming up to me, probably something about a mask or something, Michael. I'm outside and everything. But anyways,
okay.
What I was going to say, Michael, is we don't have to drain the swamp because we can swamp the drain. All our blood and treasure is being drained out at Washington, D.C. So instead of waiting for Trump to swamp the drain, we can take up our arms and we can swamp the drain.
Okay, David, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We've got other callers waiting on the line. I hope whoever's harassing you calms down. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phones to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Aloha, Michael. It sounds like David there, good old David, needs a quick call in from Miles to get that mask assault team off his back.
Yeah, maybe. It did sound like something was going on in the background there.
Well, Dustin would have talked some logic into him. But, and Mark is a good caller a lot of the time, like Mark. But, Joe was right. Joe had a lot of good points. And when he didn't, you let him go. But, I have trouble understanding Mark, such as I do Dustin from time to time, Dustin's really losing his endearment quickly from the people I hear calling in. But, Mark will sit here and say, oh, God, we want Tulsi Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard. Well, Tulsi Gabbard wants open borders. Tulsi Gabbard is anti-gun. So there you go, Mark.
Mike.
So, but he'll come right back and say, oh, God, Trump hasn't built that wall. But he wants to, then he's going to, I wish I could support Tulsi Gabbard, someone who wants no wall or anything. It's just, what a dichotomy. You know what I'm saying, Michael?
Yeah, it does seem cross purposes.
It's really convoluted there. And then you got Dustin yesterday. I don't know what's going on with Dustin. His 2020 vision hasn't been 2020 this year. But, I made a comment on ending world hunger, and somehow he brought Trump into it. And I'm talking about the NBA, NFL, all these pro teams together, $30 billion. I think wouldn't that be magnificent? Only $30 billion to end hunger.
Yeah, but how long would that last? I mean, you're not going to end hunger forever with $30 billion, unless you put it into food production and improving farms and improving productivity in the supply chain. Just buying everybody a few meals doesn't really solve the problem.
No, exactly. It was supposed to be a sustainable plan built on seed crops, seed banks, and continued renewal. But $30 billion to get it kicked off the ground, and I think that's, my God, is that ever reasonable to feed the whole world and make sure there's no hunger? But and then Dustin comes in. Well, what did Trump do? I mean, how he got off on how he totally hijacked the entire conversation of what did Trump do? Well, what did Clinton do? What did Obama do? What have any of these people done? And I wasn't talking about them anyway. And see, this is that mindset. This is that Democratic seated mindset that Dustin displays. But he'll tell you he's not a Democrat. He voted for Trump, so that makes him not a Democrat. But I think any wise Democrat would vote for Trump. And I agree with Joe on so many counts. I mean, there's so many things Trump has done that he doesn't get any credit for. Filling these vacancies. I mean, he filled important vacancies in these judicial areas that there was just a big Ninth Circuit decision, and they were going to do something about the capacity of magazines, And it was the guys that Trump had appointed that had stopped that from going through. I mean, Trump has been doing a lot of things behind the scenes. Of course he doesn't do everything right. I mean, I don't know anybody who's done everything right. And I don't, certainly not any of these presidents. But my God, I agree with Joe. They don't give him even a little credit, a little break. And beautiful by Tom from Florida. You know what I mean? Tom said, precisely. Dustin always comes in and he's always jamming on Trump. Trump. I never hear him say, well, you know, we got Gat and NAFTA because of Clinton and Al Gore was the deciding vote. And I never hear him say anything about any of these. And he's a guy that's been Democrat forever, except he voted for Trump one time. So that excuses him, I guess, from exclusivity. But, you know, it's just really ridiculous. I mean, Trump does some good things, period. He doesn't do everything good, but he doesn't do everything bad either. And I think with what he's up against, he's doing one heck of a job. Now, you know, this Black Lives Matter and Antifa and all this, we've got to gain stronghold on this, and this stuff's got to stop. I mean, this Breonna, whatever her name is there, and
Taylor.
That's just ridiculous. That's extortion. If you don't give us and our people a verdict, we're going to burn you up. We're going to burn you out.
Yes, that is extortion.
That is extortion, and that should not be tolerated.
I mean, look what happened to that guy who was originally deemed to have acted in self-defense when he shot a protester, and then the DA knuckled under to public pressure from the Black Lives Matter crowd, and then turned around and charged him with manslaughter, and he wound up committing suicide. I mean, that's mobocracy right there.
So then where are these groups like Judicial Watch and all these groups? They're supposed to fight corruption. Why aren't they fighting these people here that are knuckling under and bowing down to these pressures and even going against the law and even allowing
It's a good question. It's a good question. Anyway, Miles, I'm going to have to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. We got callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go right back to the phones to Dustin in New Jersey. Dustin, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind today?
Mike, this lifelong Democrat's checking in his pocket for change because that's why first time I voted was for Obama, hoping change. I looked at my pocket. I had no change.
Yep.
So
he destroyed your hopes and took your change.
Yeah. So you, Miles, my Democrat, I'm a lifelong Democrat. You know, I mean, Tom, you always say, like the Democrat does, you know, I live in New Jersey. Obviously, it's a Democratic stronghold. But I'm not voting for Biden, and I'm not voting for Trump. Because my life's not going to change from neither of these two morons. Okay? Kamala, and Trump, whoever he picks, maybe Nikki Haley. I wonder if Mark will vote for Trump if he picks Nikki Haley or any of these other people for vice president if Pence isn't on the ticket again. You know? Oh my God. What happens if Pompeo is the vice president? And Mark, are you going to vote for Trump? I'm going to have to rewind. Tom, okay, you said something about the Cubans losing all this weight. And this is also to Joe. You know, sanctions are a part of warfare. That's an act of war. Trump hasn't started any new wars, but he hasn't ended any new ones physically, but he has kept covert wars going. He has kept economic wars going. Trade wars is a war. Economic war. Okay, guys? You know, so don't think Trump hasn't done all these things Trump hasn't done things as we say as bad as Obama, Bush, Clinton, but he hasn't ended the wars. Pulling a couple thousand troops out and moving them around, doing a 180 and then pushing them back in after the election or something. Mike, those troops are never coming out of Afghanistan. You know that, right? They're not coming out of Afghanistan. They're not coming out of Iraq, and they're not coming out of Syria. And I think it's pretty nasty for Tom to say we deserve the oil. Tom, what have you sacrificed in any of his wars? Did you lose your limbs on a lie? Any of your legs or your arms? No, probably not. You know? None of these people, Trump never did. Bush and Clinton's never did. None of their family members ever sacrificed, right, Mike? None of them
Right.
went to war. They sent other people. You think Jared Kushner's going to be grafted ever? You know, none of these people are going to. These are the oligarchs. That's the elite guys. They're never
Yes.
going to go to war. It's going to be us or the little people, you know? And it's been going on since the Roman Empire before that, you know?
Yes.
The words of, the German barbarians, and, you know, it's the same. But, Mike, I mean, I just look at people. They're just so, I don't hate Trump. I don't hate him. I'm not going to vote for him. I just think he's nuts. He's just part of the same group. Like, I mean, I don't understand why people, Mike, you know, there's cult members that follow Trump just like there's cult members that follow Hillary and Joe Biden. They'll vote for their party no matter what.
Yes.
You know, very few switch sides, right? Either
Yes.
you're red or you're blue. You know, it's like a board game. You know, I'll pick the red or I'll pick the blue, and that's it. But, I mean, if you just look about it, like, Trump hasn't ended the war. Mike, that was the reason I voted for Trump, to end the wars. He hasn't, and he won't. Okay? And Soleimani, by the way, in Iran, the guy wasn't like I'm sorry, Mark, but he wasn't like Mother Teresa. You know, he ran the Quds Force. He was like, you know, he ran the Quds Force. You know, so, I mean, they do a lot of bad things, too. But, I mean, that shouldn't have happened. That event should not have happened, and that was done by Trump and Pompeo and all them. You know, but Mark, you'll still vote for Trump. You know what I mean? Like, you'll vote for Trump even though he does all these things that you don't like, but because Biden is worse. But isn't it worse now? You know, it can get worse later, but it's worse now. You know, it's bad now. You know, but I just don't understand, like, the mentality of people, you know, not just realizing. I mean, Mike, Trump, you saw him the other day with Ilhan Omar saying these crazy comments. Why can't Trump stop twittering crazy crap? Like, why does he say these things? The same with the election, the mail-in voting. I mean, we have absentee voting. Isn't absentee voting mail-in votes the same?
Well, actually, they're two separate mechanisms, and I think Trump is justified in expressing concern over the way mail-in voting is being handled. You know, now they're having an argument over whether or not secrecy envelopes are needed or not, because apparently that's going to affect mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. Then we have these stories about trays of mail being left in a ditch that contain absentee ballots or mail-in ballots. And it's just a huge mess. I mean, the post office is really going to have trouble delivering these things in a timely manner. We're already seeing a case where military votes for Trump were simply being thrown away.
Well, Mike, remember? He was supposed to fix the whole voting system.
Yeah, he was supposed to. He promised he would, and he didn't. And if he loses this election, if it's stolen from him, you know, that's his fault, because he had the chance to fix it, and he should have pushed harder.
Is it going to be stolen? But is it going to be stolen from? What happens if he don't leave? What's going to happen? Because, you know, he's telling people, Mike, if the vote is, if he loses by like a small amount, then he could just say, I'm not leaving because it was stolen from. But at what point does like he like say, okay, I lost like legitimate? You know what I mean? Like, where does that point come in? Because
I think he's right. I think this is going to wind up in the Supreme Court. And if he fails to get his nominee confirmed, if the Democrats are able to block that, and we have a 4-4 split decision, then under the Constitution, the election would be thrown to the House of Representatives, which is democratically controlled, and that means Biden gets to be president.
And real quick, if I have any time, I was going to talk about Taylor, the woman who got killed, because, you know, I'm going to call in tomorrow about it. But, Mike, I'm going to jump back real quick about the oil, taking oil. It's not yours to take, Tom. And that had nothing to do with Iraq. That's Syria. You just can't go into a country. I mean, hey, Tom, you do realize we destroyed Iraq, right? We destroyed Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen. Trump has given all those weapons, Mike, to Saudi Arabia. But Iran's the biggest terrorist in the world, but Saudi Arabia isn't. You understand that?
Well, what they're doing in Yemen definitely counts as war crimes.
What about all the jihadis coming into Syria from Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, to an extent, right? They were all jihadis. That's that Wahhabi coming out of Saudi Arabia. But yet, you guys are going to vote for Trump that gave all these weapons. I'm not saying Biden wouldn't. Trump had that big thing with the Saudi king, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He gave him this weapon and that weapon and this weapon. Why? That's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Dustin. We're going to switch over to Chance in West Virginia. Hello, Chance. Thank you for waiting. What's on your mind today?
Yes, hello, Mike. You know, Mike, with all due respect, do you really think it's such a good idea to have callers bicker, criticize, and debate among themselves? You know,
I try and keep it under control, but when one caller provokes another and the other wants to respond in the spirit of the First Amendment, I try and sort of have like this pro wrestling ring there where they come on out and they take swings at each other, but they don't really connect.
Well, you know what? I find it totally amazing that people feel the need that they have to justify themselves to total strangers. You know, it's becoming like cheap, silly, superficial entertainment now. All the whining, the complaining, but nobody has solutions. While the Americans are under attack in every way possible, people are going at it like there's no tomorrow. It's getting really tedious. Look at how they bicker and criticize. Look at how they bicker and criticize each other. Is this good for our patriot movement? It's unfriggin' believable. Competition among so-called patriots we do not need. Nah, it doesn't look good to me at all. I mean, we need solutions. I mean, let's not make this a gab fest and people criticizing each other. Things won't get done this way, Mike. And I mean that I'm trying to give you constructive criticism. That's all. Maybe a suggestion. Maybe you should just change the format to just news because it's getting tedious with these people. I mean, it's really nonsense now. And that's all I got to say, Mike, and thank you for taking my call.
All right. Thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Steve in West Virginia. Hello, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah. Hi, Mike. I hear a couple of your callers talking like, maybe Trump might win, maybe he won't win. I think Trump's going to win in a landslide, although I'm not voting for him either, but I think he's going to win in a landslide. I live in the Panhandle of West Virginia, not too far from D.C., and I work for the government, and I do a lot of traveling within like a 4-state area. And I'm telling you, I see so many Trump signs. I've seen 3 Biden signs in the entire time, and I'm on the road all the time, Mike. And not only that, I know so many black people that are going to vote for Trump versus Biden. It's blowing me away. And
I think if we had an honest election system, Trump would win re-election in a landslide. Unfortunately, the Democrats have just been telegraphing they're going to steal it, and there's nothing we can do about it. But I'll tell you, here in Indiana, the situation is the same thing. Claire and I were driving around just this morning. We had to go down to the Walmart and everything. Trump signs everywhere. I saw a total of 2 Biden signs.
Mike, though, one thing you're not taking into consideration is what happens if Trump cheats. Trump can cheat too. I
imagine he can. And unfortunately, his supporters would be saying he's justified in doing so because the Democrats are cheating.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance in the world that Trump isn't going to win. I think even with all the Democrat cheating, he's still going to win in a landslide. But I want to get
they tried that in 2016 and they lost, and I'm sure they're going to double their efforts or treble their efforts this time.
Yeah, but they were in control in 2016. They were in control of all the internal mechanisms. They're not in control of them all now.
I hope you're right.
another point. Yeah, I want to move to my second point here. Is that one thing that Dustin is saying is he's right. Trump hasn't left any of the the Middle East countries. He hasn't finished building the wall, but I don't even care about the wall. It's look at the insider trading on these Republican and Democrat senators, and Dianne Feinstein's probably sold tons and tons of secrets to the Chinese. None of these people are punished. None of these people are brought up on charges. Nothing, Mike. Nothing. I do not trust our government because there's no equal justice applied to these people.
No, nothing's going to happen to Bloomberg either. They're making a big stink about it, and he's bribing people to vote, and they're talking about he's under investigation. But I don't think anything's actually going to happen to him. He's too rich. He's too connected.
And Mike, we all know even the dumbest person out there that is doesn't pay attention to politics knows that this Antifa thing it's organized. These people are being paid, yet you hear on the news like they're investigating who's behind it. They've always known who's behind it. That's why I'm not voting for Trump. There hasn't been any effort at all to take this thing down, and it's almost like he's part of it. It's like a big psyop, and he's part of it. I am not going to vote for Trump at all. I don't care what Tom, Miles, any of these people say. I'm not voting for him. He hasn't done what he said he was going to do, and that's end the wars and put these people in jail. None of them have went to jail. None of them have been indicted except for one little peony lawyer. That doesn't amount to anything, and that's it. I'm not voting for him. There's nothing that can change my mind. Anyway,
okay, well, I mean, that's your choice as an American citizen. I don't think Trump is part of the rioting, but I think he allowed it to go on because it's actually working against the Democratic agenda.
Yeah, but Mike, who's going to come back and rebuild all those cities that they've damaged? I don't want to pay for that.
Well, one way or the other, we're all going to pay for that. Higher insurance premiums, higher taxes.
Mike, have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Bobby in Florida. Hello, Bobby. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, gosh, I don't know. I don't like to stay on long when I talk to you. I like to keep it short.
Okay.
I think we're done. I think we're done, no matter what. And I think the whole Epstein thing really opened it up for everybody to look at. We've got a bunch of pedophiles. Look at all the children that come. No one ever talks about this. There's a lot of children that come up missing all the time. I think about that.
Yes.
And I think about Epstein. I think about Trump. He's hung around these people too. If you're familiar with the Sabbatarian Frankists, I'm not going to go there. But it looks like eyes wide shut with all of them. We're done with this. This whole thing is coming down in front of us. And to sit here and say left wing, right wing, same bird. I mean, you've heard it all before. And I kind of agree with the other caller about the bickering thing. It's kind of entertaining in a way, but I can see where some people are a little more serious. I don't know. That's just my opinion of it all. Gosh, I don't know. And the comment that he made about Ghislaine Maxwell, I wish her well. How many of these children that they haven't found that were maybe murdered or killed or missing or whatever? I mean, he's tied to that. He wishes someone like that well. That speaks volumes about this man. And
yes.
No matter what, Republican or Democrat, it's all nasty. It's just one big nasty sore. I don't know how we're going to get out. I'm worried. And I like to think that there's more good people. I believe there is. It's just how do we do this? I mean, it seems like all roads lead to the Rothschilds. Do we do them like the Romanovs were done and just surround them? And no, I think we should capture all these people, like you say, and make them get jobs at Taco Bell and drive beat up Kias, and we'll make a reality show out of the real wealthy people.
Yeah, sort of like Beverly Hillbillies in reverse.
Right. I mean, that would be worse than, make sure they don't suicide themselves. Put a chip in them so they can't kill themselves. We want to watch them because they really want to kill themselves. I agree with you 100% on some of the things, but that's what I look at is the moral character of the man when he went on the TV shows and talked about having sex with his daughter and all that. And I don't care. Anybody can try to push that on the wrong. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, Bobby, we're going to have to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We got 2 more callers waiting on the line, and we'll be right back with our final segment. And welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Miles in Maine. And hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I lost him.
You lost Miles. Okay, we lost Peter as well.
I got Jack in New Mexico.
You got Jack in New Mexico. Okay, Jack in New Mexico, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, how you doing?
Doing fine.
Good. I want to bring everyone together and have an agreement that we can all say that Hillary's favorite song is "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor."
Okay.
I do agree with a couple of your callers. We got to calm it down. We got to stay together. We don't want more divide.
No, we don't. You know, in fact, I'm sure the task of some of the trolls and shills calling the show is to try and get us to fight amongst ourselves, and that is counterproductive.
I've talked to you before, and you just sent me your phone number. Put the phone number up for someone to see behind you. Like the guy.
Okay.
The guy. I got about 5 laptops and 5 iPhones because I start every day reading the NSA on Messenger and YouTube, things like that. You know, hey, we have some hardworking individuals. Everyone say hello. Maybe after enough time, if we all do it, they'll get the message. We ain't the problem. They are.
Okay.
Well, I get paid 100%. I'm a 90% service veteran. And I don't like when people call in and say certain things and facts are wrong. I'm not going to call back in and correct the person. But I was in Kuwait through a little thing, and they did have tanks in the front after the minefield. And I want to know, have you ever listened to the guy in Florida always saying trigger? It's something like paint the Trump or something like that. I want to know if the guy from Florida is that, because I think me and him ought to go out on the road. Because I have a lot of build-up anxieties in me right now. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
And I'm not alone. I sent a text to our Democrat governor today saying that I'm thinking and I would volunteer to put a cop in every car, or in every car that an officer's in, put a veteran in it. And I'd be a prime. I don't need the money.
Well, I know that most police departments preferentially hire veterans because they're, more prepared to deal with confrontation. That, on the other hand, may be part of the backlash and why we've had so many shootings of late.
But what I'm saying is put someone in like me. I don't need to be paid. I can save their salary, and we can double their force. And I'm talking about Albuquerque.
Well, with all these cities who are defunding the police and everything, that kind of a volunteer citizens militia may actually be necessary in the near future. All righty. Anyway, Jack, listen, I got to let you go. We're out of time here. I apologize to the caller we had on hold. Try and call in tomorrow. I know you got something important to say. Stay tuned for Steve Elkins. He is taking over for John Stadmiller in the following show, and he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We really need it. Nobody's getting rich doing this, but we need your help to just keep doing what we're doing. We'll be back tomorrow with the lovely Lady Claire. Aloha, America.